local biodiversity and conservation horticulture in this lovely little piece, this green lung of Durban. Reserve is a 10-hectare remnant of coastal forest on Durban's Berea, once part of a bigger forest tract that reached all the way from Mngeni River in the north to the Mbilo River in the south. Surrounded by a sea of suburbia, this urban green space is now a refuge for wildlife and forest plants. It's bounded by busy motorways on either side. Within walking distance from KwaZulu-Natal Howard College campus, and also overlooks Durban's Bay. The reserve boasts a high level of local biodiversity, richness, and a current bird list of 152 species. The indigenous tree list is some 110 species. To put this in perspective, the British Isles only has 33 tree species of their own. You can see from the map is within the province of KwaZulu-Natal, in the city of Durban, close to Durban's Bay, overlooking the bay and the bluff. And topography of Pigeon Valley. Pigeon Valley has a summer rainfall of 60%, with 60% of the rain falling in the months between November and March. The average rainfall is over 1.1 meters for that period. There's no frost. A large stormwater discharge pipe in the center of the reserve fills small artificial ponds that are used by the duiker for drinking. The reserve lies at an altitude of 65 meters above sea level in the east, and it rises to 110 meters above sea level in the west. Soils are red, deep and sandy, and well drained, being derived from the Berea dunes. A central brick path bisects the reserve in its valley into two portions: the cool, moist south-facing slope and a hotter, dry, north-facing slope. These topographical differences influence the microclimate and plant distribution of the reserve. The flora of Pigeon Valley Nature Reserve consists largely of what has been described as northern coastal forest. This is a dense, species-rich subtropical forest of medium to tall height. The representative flagship forest species in this reserve are the Natal elm, Celtis mulbradii, and the Natal loquat, Oxyanthus pyriformis. Species, since they are representative and unique. The Natal elm is endemic to the area and a surviving relic from the original stellar bush. The protection of this tree within the reserve gives it a national heritage status. It's a close relative of the white stinkwood, Celtis africana, also found in the reserve. The Natal elm is characterized by its large leathery leaves and distinctive flaring buttress roots. The second tree we have a look at is the Natal loquat, Oxyanthus pyriformis. This is a member of the coffee family, or Rubiaceae. It forms an attractive garden subject with glossy green leaves and gardenia-scented flowers. This plant grows on the shadier and moist southern slopes of the reserve. We're going to look at one of these trees in a bit more detail, and that is the Natal loquat. As you can see from the pictures, it looks a bit like a loquat. Loquat is an edible fruit that comes from China. The Natal loquat ranges between 3 to 10 meters tall, so it's a small tree. It occurs in the understory of moist evergreen forest. Its bark is grey to brown, branches are horizontally branching, They are green with very thin leaves. The genus names Oxyanthus means sharp-pointed flower, derived from the Greek words oxyas, meaning sharp-pointed, and anthos, meaning flower. The name pyriformis means pear-shaped, referring to the fruits. Although this plant's common name implies it is a kind of loquat, it is not related to the true loquat, which is Eriobotia. This originates in China and belongs to the rose family. Interesting thing about the Natal loquat is it's pollinated by a long-tongued hawk moth. Moths are primarily nocturnal and they pollinate the plants at night. This is attributed to a moth with a jaw-breaking name of Selonia mauritia. This has been observed probing the flowers on several occasions. Its probing tongue can be between 85 to 100 millimeters long, which matches the length of the white tubular flowers of the Natal loquat perfectly. These two main trees, the Natal elm and the Natal loquat, are the flagship species, but there are several other species resident in the forest that are typical of the Natal coastal belt. These include the flat crown tree, coastal goldleaf, white stinkwood, thorny rope, climbing flatbean, Natal milk plum, monkey apple, pigeonwood, forest cabbage tree, a range of figs, the yellow fig, the Cape fig, the Natal fig, the forest croton, and September bells. This list of trees is not complete. There are many others. However, these are a good start for the beginner. And I've compiled a group of trees for you that are most significant and that are important to learn at this stage of your careers. According to families, the elm family houses several plants. We already spoke about Celtis mulbradia, one of the most important ones. It's important to understand the diagnostic characteristics of the plant. Trees are difficult because they all have small green leaves, and this is no exception. This indigenous tree's got simple leaves. They're arranged alternatively. They are have narrow to rounded ends and are widest at the middle. The diagnostic characteristic is they are three-veined from the base. The stout trunk also has a large supporting buttress roots, and that's another feature of the Natal elm. You can also look for the spherical red fruit. As we mentioned earlier, related to the Natal elm is a Natal white stinkwood, Celtis africana, that is very widespread. This is a beautiful large deciduous tree growing up to 25 meters tall. It's easily identified by its smooth, pale grey to white bark. Natal stinkwoods are best planted in gardens, parks, and as street trees. They're not really suitable for the smaller garden. The leaves again are simple, alternate. They are fairly triangular in shape. Again, they share the family characteristic of three veins from the base. The margin is also toothed or serrated or saw-toothed for the upper two-thirds of the leaf. New leaves are bright, fresh green and hairy, turning darker green and becoming smoother as they mature. The twigs and the end of the branches have a distinct zigzag appearance. Other relatives of the elm family, as we mentioned, Natal elm, as well as another tree that we'll be looking at, two other trees from this family called the pigeonwood, Trema orientalis, and the thorny elm, Ketecme aristata. Just to confuse us further, the botanists have decided to change the name of the elm family, and it's now been changed to Cannabaceae, after the familiar herb of Durban poison. Since a lot of these leaves look similar, it's important for us to understand the key differences between them. In the forest, leaves can vary substantially. Their shape and size depends on the amount of sunlight they receive, as well as the age of the plant. So if a tree is receiving more sunlight, the leaves will be smaller. If they're receiving less sunlight, the leaves will be bigger. Saltus africana closely resembles and can easily be confused with the pigeonwood. The difference is as follows. If you look at the picture on the left, you'll see the leaves of the pigeonwood tree are narrower. They are both narrower and longer than that of the white stinkwood, Saltus africana. They are slender. They're also serrated mostly from the base. And the fruit they carry, you can see the little black fruits. These are carried on much shorter stalks. Tremor fruits are small and black. The leaves are very variable, as we explained. But like their brothers and sisters, they are also three-veined from the base. The pigeonwood has a light grey bark. The tree itself grows rapidly and is consequently very short-lived. The branches are brittle. These break off, revealing scars on the trunk, which is another way to identify them. Tremor is sown by the birds, and it is regarded as a pioneer tree, often appearing near forest edges or disturbed soil sites. It is a pioneer. It is breaking new ground. The pigeonwood tree, Tremor orientalis. The next tree in this family that we look at is called the thorny elm, Ketecme aristata. That's quite a mouthful, but we'll work our way through it. This is a particularly thorny and messy tree. It's found in most Durban parks and forest remnants. The tree often coppices, which means it shoots up new spouts, long thorny water spouts or shoots from the base of the tree. The leaves are also alternate. They have one or two straight spines on the leaf axil. So if you look at the bottom of each leaf, you will see straight spines. The branchlets zigzag. The leaves are simple, more or less elliptical, and have a key characteristic called an aristate or drip tip. I'll repeat that. It's called an aristate or drip tip. It allows water to fall off the end of the leaf. Aristate means hair-like. So you can see that very clearly in all of the thorny elm leaves. Sometimes the leaves have thorns, sometimes they don't. A leaf margins can be smooth or sharply toothed, which can make identification difficult. The other characteristic to look for in this tree is its fruit. It has orange fruit. These have been called Dingaan's apricot, since these fruits were once used as a famine food for the armies of the Zulu Impi in KwaZulu-Natal. Right, so we are leaving the elm family behind. We're now moving into the legume family. And here we have a particularly nasty individual called the thorny rope. Also goes by the name of Dalbergia armata. Armata obviously means armed. This tree has fine dark compound leaves, very similar to an acacia. These are borne on thick branches of thorny rope. It has massive 150 millimeter long vicious spiked thorns. These branches twist themselves around the other trees of the forest, so watch your head. The plant is used medicinally by the Zulus and the Xhosas. In the Eastern Cape, the plant is used as a love charm. In KwaZulu-Natal, the slender branches are used to make muzzles. These are placed over the mouths of the calves to stop them drinking from their mothers. You can imagine the thorns. Medicinally, the roots can be boiled in water, and then a mixture is gargled to relieve toothache. I do not advise you to try this at home unless you know what you are doing. The thorny rope is the climbing flatbean, Dalbergia obovata. Also a legume, it has compound leaves, and it is much branched scandent shrub. Scandent means it lies down. Like many of today's millennials, they lie down, they are scandent. It's a strong or robust creeper. It puts out long branches with characteristic hooks, as you can see from the picture on the left, that are used to cling to the surrounding vegetation. The handsome compound leaves have large glossy leaflets, which are dark green above and blue-green below. These are borne in a slightly zigzag pattern. The leaf stalk also has velvety hairs covering it, velvety brown hairs. The leaves are very similar to that of a lychee tree. It has clustered seed pods which are also distinctive, and the plant forms an impenetrable thicket. That means you cannot move past it. Impenetrable thicket of about 2 to 3 meters in height, also climbing into the forest trees themselves, and this plant is only suitable for large indigenous gardens and rehabilitation work. The next tree is a forest giant, belongs to its own family. It's called the fluted milkwood, Chrysophyllum viridifolium. Another jawbreaker for you. Chryso means golden, phylum means leaves. Viridifolium means super glossy leaves. It is fluted. It's called the fluted milkwood. It's one of the majestic trees in the reserve, towers up to 30 meters high. The trunk is clearly fluted and divided into supporting organ-like pubs. The leaves are shiny green with a prominent light green midrib and very distinct parallel side veins. In fact, if you hold these up to the light, you will see the beautiful parallel nature of this venation. The tree seeds freely. You can often find saplings on the forest floor, and it bears small green fruit, as you can see from the middle slide. The next tree is another giant, very common to Pigeon Valley, and indeed much of Durban's forest. It's called the forest croton. It's an indigenous croton. It goes by the name of Croton sylvaticus. It's another large forest tree. It grows in excess of 25 meters. It is not suitable for home gardens, but large parks and estates only. This tree is found on the sunnier, north-facing slopes of the reserve. It has beautiful lime green leaves. You see the slide on the right. They're usually egg-shaped, varying from 50 to 150 millimeters long and 100 millimeters wide. They look at first glance like a mulberry. They are widest towards the base. As you can see, they taper or narrow down to a long point. They also have sharply toothed margins. Another distinctive characteristic is they are 5-veined from the base. As you recall, the elm family was 3-veined from the base. They're smooth above and with a few star-shaped hairs below on the veins. Small stipules. A stipule is a little flap of tissue at the base of the leaf petiole, falls early. Flower spikes are long. They're typical croton flower spikes. Small creamy white flowers are found in September to January, and these are followed by bright orange fruit. One of the most beautiful trees in Pigeon Valley is the forest cabbage tree. It goes by the name of Cossonia spherocephala. Quite another jaw-breaking mouthful. You can start off by learning it as the forest cabbage tree. It's a tall, slender tree, grows up to 25 meters high. It emerges from the forest canopy on the south-facing slopes, where it is cooler and moist. The species name spherocephala literally means round head. Sphero is round, cephala is head. This refers to the leaves which are clustered at the top of each trunk. The flower inflorescence is typical of the Aralia or ivy family, and the flower takes 2 years to develop. Plants are grown from seed, and the forest cabbage tree is drought resistant. It is often used as a landscape form plant in larger gardens. Well, we are nearing the end of our tree survey. This particular tree is called a monkey orange. It goes by the name of Strychnos gerardii. Strychnos gerardii. It's another fairly scraggy and thorny tree you will find in the reserve. This grows on the hotter northern facing slopes. These trees are dense and thicket-like. Look for the large tennis ball sized fruit on the ground. This is loved by the monkeys. And the typical strychnos leaves, which are shiny green and leathery, and also 3-veined from the base. The branches are often armed and spiny. Its other relative in the reserve is Strychnos decussata. There are several species of strychnos in southern Africa. Look out for them. They form a major component of our forests and grasslands. Well, we've been looking up at the wonderful trees around us. It's now time to look at the middle layer, or the understory layer. And here we see a green plant called buckwheat. Buckwheat, obviously, browsed by the resident little buck that we have in the reserve called Dika. It goes by the name of Isoglossa woodii. This is a shade-loving, multi-branch shrub growing about 4 meters tall. The plant forms a large part of the understory layer at Pigeon Valley Nature Reserve, where it shuts out the light, thus preventing the emergence of forest seedlings. When a large tree dies, however, the forest opens up and more tree saplings emerge. It has fairly nondescript, broad, soft leaves. These vary between 75 and 120 mils long. These often droop when there's a drought. The plants look as though they're dying, but they are not. These plants have a life cycle of 7 to 10 years, after which they flower en masse. They flower all together and then die off. The plant provides food and shelter for numerous birds and insects, and are browsed by the resident darker. Pigeonwood is not just solely forest. There is a small portion of grassland as you enter the gate. If you carry on the path immediate to your left, you will come to the small grassland. Looking at the slide, we've got several pictures. The one on the left is actually called forest basket grass, Ostranemus hirtellus. This is an indigenous grass. It grows mostly on the forest fringe or in semi-shade. You see another companion of it, a wild hibiscus, Hibiscus pedunculatus, grows in semi-shade on the fringe of the forest. In full sun, we have a very common grass in Natal. As you can see on the slide in the top right, this is called broom grass. Brooms are made from this grass. It goes by the botanical name of Aristida junkiformis. You'll also see other colorful hibiscus. The yellow hibiscus with a maroon eye at the bottom right. This is Hibiscus calyphyllus. Very beautiful when it's in flower. Well, we don't just look at the plants, we also need to look at some of the other fauna within the reserve. By fauna we include avian fauna, or in plain English, birds. There are several large birds that inhabit Pigeon Valley, as well as many smaller ones. Some of the more photogenic or more desirable looking birds are the African goshawk, this fellow that's giving you the eye on the left hand side. In the middle, in the blue sky, we've got a small bird, very common in Durban gardens, called a bronze manakin. He's a seed eater. On the right of him we have the olive sunbird perching on a Dalbergia branch. Very pretty. At the bottom we have a spotted bird, small bird called the spotted thrush, literally. And the little bird at the bottom right, picking up his tail, is the natal robin. A very shy bird. If you walk softly, you'll often be able to spot him in the undergrowth. There's large birds of prey in Pigeon Valley. One of the common birds in our suburbs is the yellow-billed kite on the left. Very common. Less common, however, is the crowned eagle. The photograph of this bird was taken in Pigeon Valley. This is a juvenile crowned eagle, and he was reportedly feasting on the remains of a small red duiker. So there are carnivorous birds in the reserve. So you may be lucky to bump into a juvenile crowned eagle in the reserve. Very photogenic models of the reserve. Little birdie on the left is called a paradise flycatcher, and the larger bird on the right is the purple-crested lory. These are both gorgeous birds, and one often hears them in the reserve. The purple-crested lory makes a distinctive barking sound, very similar to a dog. Butterflies present in the reserve. These are just three small samples. The butterfly on the left is called a brown pansy. If you look carefully, you'll see there is a male and female actually mating there, caught by the photographer. Many of these photographs are taken by the Friends of Pigeon Valley, headed up by Crispin. The butterfly in the middle here is called a red acrea. Quite an easy name to remember, red acrea. And the beautiful butterfly on the right is called a pearl charaxes, all of which are fairly common in the Durban area. But the reserve provides a wonderful habitat of larval and food plants for these insects. We come to the larger mammals of Pigeon Valley, which are not really large at all, but they're very beautiful if you can spot them. The little animal on the left is called a spotted genet. I actually had one on my stoop at home. I live within a kilometer of Pigeon Valley. I was blessed to have one of these on my stoop one evening. They're nocturnal, they come out at night. The little animal on the right is called a red duiker. A red duiker is a small buck. I've been to Pigeon Valley, every single time that I've been to Pigeon Valley, we've been able to see these small buck. Finally, this is my farewell slide. But before I sign off, I want to point out a few little animals to you. The plants on the bottom left is a white pea called Baphia racemosa, a very nice tree for small gardens. Moving clockwise, we see a little bird with monkey face staring out at us. The little birdie in the top there is called a green twin spot, very shy bird that many birding experts have seen in the reserve. The little animal in the middle is called a banded mongoose, also extremely popular and common in Durban. And you might encounter a small snake in the reserve. Don't be alarmed. This is called a variegated bush snake. It's not a green mamba. It will move quietly off. So, thank you for listening to me, and we will see you at Pigeon Valley Nature Reserve.